Hey, all you awesome YouTube folks out there. Today, you're going to be probably seeing several videos kind of drop. This one is more of a serious, not really serious, but more focused subject. And that is the idea of sexuality, orientation in D&D. You know, I This seems to be a bigger issue than I would have thought it would have been, considering this is a fantasy world where you can basically escape and be whatever you want to be. One of the great things about being in theater as a professor is having a space for people to be able to safely express themselves. It should be the same way with D&D in a game. As GMs, we have a responsibility to our players. It is not our job to force those players into molds that we deem acceptable. So it's important that as a GM, you need to talk with your players, really talk about characters. I usually tell my players, it's like, hey, your character can be who or whatever they want to be. And if you have a character that is being created by one of your players who may have feelings that they don't understand, and so they're trying to create those feelings in a character and kind of act those out to see in a fantasy setting how people would react to that. As a GM, it is our responsibility to create NPC characters that would interact with that character so that that player would understand what it would be like. Now, that's not saying that it all has to be rainbows and puppies, because we all know the real world is not that way. But in a fantasy world, it could be however we want it to be. As a person who, I understand those struggles. I understand it. So when I play D&D, I get to express myself in a way that I probably wouldn't be able to do that in real life. But because that's what it's about. It's a fantasy world. And just you get to kill dragons and really awesome things. But it's important that we show that inclusivity in our games. Now, you could have players that are going to be completely contrary to your own beliefs and sexuality and orientation, gender, all of that. So it is important that we create a world where sex, sexuality, and orientation are not a big deal. I have NPCs in my campaigns that are very sexual. They're always hitting player characters up for a good time, and we don't mince about it. I mean, it's important that it's there. I am a player in a campaign, and my character in that campaign is a halfling wizard. His name is Soren, and we were on a mission for a dwarf. Also, excuse the buzzing that you may hear, but I'm having tile removed downstairs. But we were on this quest to find this dwarf's brother, who was dealing with a village, selling them some stuff, or had made a deal with them. So we get there and we find out that he's been imprisoned by these folks, and so we're downstairs basically trying to convince him to turn off this weapon that he's activated because they haven't paid him the money that he was asking for. So my character, who from the very beginning has been known to be gay, or at least leans that way, he basically seduced this dwarf, and they had sex, and that's how he got him to shut the thing off. And and it's so funny because I myself did not have an issue with it. The GM did not have an issue with it. He was going, and we were talking through it, exactly what was happening, positions, everything. So it's important that, and the other players were giggling and having a good time with it, and it's the GM, it was great because the GM was very respectful for my decisions and my choices. as opposed to trying to wave me off of that, like, oh, he's not interested, or he's not this, or he's that, this and that. So it's very important that GMs and players alike, that we explore that. It's okay to explore it. It's okay to have, a character that is bisexual. Heck, that could come in very much handy along the way sometimes. When you, especially if you're, able to seduce, you can either one. As a GM, and I guess this video is really towards GMs, but I want players to understand as well. As a GM, we basically have to create a safe space. It's just like in theater. We create a safe space where people can be who they want to be. And D&D is one of the greatest places to do that. So as GMs, we have to make sure that we create that world where that type of sexuality, orientation, all of those kind of exist. And then players, do not be afraid to have a character that is either who you are inside and you're wanting to express it outwardly, or you're wanting to play something opposite of yourself. I have a very good straight friend who plays a gay character. And he plays a gay character because he's like, well, I'm not gay, and I want to understand, this is one way for me to understand what a gay character will go through. And even though as a gay man myself, I was sort of like, well, okay. I mean, you're going to see the fantasy side of what a gay person goes through. But and after he and I had a conversation, he understood it better. So he could play the character more realistically. Because the biggest thing about it is you have to be very careful of like stereotyping. You don't want to stereotype a character. That's just wrong. My character Soren, he's gay, but he is not like flamboyantly gay. Not that there's anything wrong with being flamboyant. He really kind of represents who I am. And if you have, a player who either is flamboyant or wants to be flamboyant, a lot of times they will create a character that is basically who they are on the inside. Soren is everything that I am on the inside. At least I like to think he is. So players, make sure you're creating characters based on who you want them to be. Now, if you don't want them to be anything like you, that's great. You can create something completely opposite. I have characters like that. I have characters who are completely opposite of who and what I am. But as a GM, I am going to support you in whatever that decision is. Now, as a GM, I will ask you questions. And I will ask some pretty personal ones of that character. Because I, as a GM, need to understand what your character is wanting to get from this world. So, if your character is like celibate, gay and celibate, but he tends to have a wandering eye, or she's a lesbian but celibate and has a wandering eye, or then I need to create characters who will basically make their eyes wander and put that conflict in their way. But I'm going to create characters that are real to them, to the player's character. Not like some stereotype of something. That's not going to happen. But as a GM, it's important that we accept sex and sexuality and orientation into our worlds. I have yet to have anyone play a trans character, and I would love it, because I am not 100% familiar with the trans community and what they go through, being, a white gay man in this world. I have no idea, but I would love to find out, and I would love to create characters that would relate to that character. So I mean, I've dealt with like lesbians and gays and bisexuals and pansexuals and polyamorous characters. I've dealt with all those. I personally have in my campaigns because I like to include all of that. But I've never had a trans character, and I would love to experience that. Oh my god! I just realized. Well, that's beside the point. So anyway, in conclusion, before I start rambling on, because that's what I will do, GMs, make an inclusive world. Players, don't be afraid to be who you are. Express yourselves to the ultimate. And know that I love you all and look forward for more videos. If you have questions, please drop them in the comments. And subscribe, hit that subscribe button. All right. Love you all, guys. Have a good one.